Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Vexian with the Strauss, and today I'll be going over the best defenders for Operation Crystal Guard, so let's get into it. Before we get into it, question of the day is, what is your favorite defender in the game? Personally, mine's probably either Mozzie or Vigil. I play both of them a lot. I like them a lot. Those are my picks. What is your pick in the comments down below? And let's hop into it. This is the best defenders. So first off, we have Kaede. Kaede's going to be an S tier. This is just because he's so crucial to winning rounds. And with the recent mute nerf/change, he becomes even more valuable. Next up is Clash. Clash is D tier. I don't personally like Clash a lot, and I think she's more detrimental to the team. But over time, she's kind of gotten okay. Definitely moved up from F tier in my opinion. She's more of a nuisance than anything. And if you have a Nomad, a Zofia, or a Capitao, she's really easy to deal with. And I don't think she offers a lot of presence in the round and higher elos. But for lower elos, you might get more use out of her. Next up is Maestro. Maestro is an S tier. He's incredibly good with his bulletproof camera that is thermal that shoots lasers. Nothing more to be said. He also has an LMG, so take that how you want it. He's pretty overpowered. Next up is Alibi. Alibi is a C tier operator. I think she's a decent roamer, and I think you can get some value out of her on some maps. And she does have a good weapon kit, making her very frag heavy. If you have a good player on your team who's really good at getting kills, put them on Alibi. Or if you yourself is cracked out in the aim labs, hey, maybe hop over and play Alibi. She can be pretty good. Next up is Wamai. I'd say Wamai is A tier. Projectile, destruction operators such as Wamai and Jaeger respectively are pretty good, but I don't think his weapon kit is S tier, and I don't think his overall utility is S tier because it does take time for him to get his magnets, and that can be the difference. If he dies early, he's going to have less value, so A tier, he's pretty situational, but overall, pretty decent, really good on some maps like Cafe and Villa, he's pretty good on. Next up, we have Goyo. Goyo is also A tier, really good for clearing out areas and denial. 2 bulletproof shields with Vulcan packs on the back, which is used for, clearing out an area and denying for 15 seconds, and a really good weapon in the Vector. He also has a C4, he has a 2-2, overall really well-rounded, but not enough to be S tier, but definitely better than B tier. Next up, we have Warden. Warden moves up in B tier. Usually I would have him in F tier, but with the recent flash changes and how prevalent flashes are becoming, and how they can just kind of screw you over, he's actually a really good counter, and probably the best counter to flashes, and operators like Ying and Blitz respectively. For that reason, B tier, he has a lot of value in some scenarios, and overall, his just baseline value has increased enough where he's, I'd say, definitely C tier, but because of his certain, better pairings and like his pair-ups between certain operators, I'd say he's overall B tier, because, hey, if you play Ying, there's no way to kill it unless you are Warden. Same thing with the Blitz. Next up is Mozzie. Mozzie is S tier. He is, probably arguably the best info denier in the game next to Mute. And, I think that's kind of just the truth. He's really good. And his weapons are really decent. Even though the Rooney received the nerf, the Commando is still one of the best guns in the game on defense. And for that reason, he is S tier. Can deny 3 drones and then use those drones to his advantage. Next up, we have Oryx. Oryx, I struggle to place consistently. I always get hate comments where I place him. So instead of placing him in F tier where I think he belongs, I'll be placing him in D tier because I can understand some of the concerns with, Oryx and kind of why he is probably better than F. He's decent at destruction and soft destruction, and I think with a simple change, aka he doesn't lose health when he goes through a wall, I think that would be enough to easily cement him in C tier and make him a lot more useful. Until then, he's D tier, he has a decent weapon kit, and is good at roaming, but besides that, he offers very little to the team. Next up is Echo. Echo's S tier. He's one of the best defenders in the game and always has been and always will be because of the nature of his gadget. His gadget is 2 semi-visible, I guess they were invisible, they're visible now, drones that stick to the ceiling, that shoot disorientating bolts, and can deny plant for some time. They're very good, and if an Echo is alive in the last 30 seconds of the round, good luck getting the bomb down. Next up is Cav. I would be putting Cav in C tier, even though I personally don't like her, and I was kind of going back between B and C. I overall don't think she is worthy of B tier, but I do think she is C tier. If you can execute an execution or interrogation, she is actually incredibly good, and for that reason, she is C. Otherwise, I think her kind of ability is lackluster, and I think the majority of her kit is kind of mediocre. But if you get the interrogation off, you're big chillin', you're going to win the round 100% of the time. Next up, we have Valkyrie. Valkyrie's S tier. She has 3 evil eye, well, I guess they're black eye cameras. They're not evil eye cameras, but roughly do the same thing. You throw these basically anywhere on the map, and you're going to get a lot of free information. Maps like Canal and Consulate and Coastline, all very, very prominent maps, and probably the best example of her, special talents. With that being said, though, she's good on every single map, and she's overall really, really good in the hands of just competent defenders who watch, Valcam videos. Hey, check out Astralis. We got some Valcam videos over there. You can really use that operator to the best extent, but honestly, just having the ability to throw a camera and just get free information is insane. And for that reason, she's S tier. Next up is Vigil. I'll be putting Vigil in B tier. He is the best roamer in the game next to Cav, in my opinion. And I think he's even better. But he's relatively selfish, and there's not a whole lot you can do with him if you get like caught out. And again, like I said, he's very selfish, and he really is reliant on either an incredibly smart player playing him or an incredibly good fragger to play him. Someone who's really aggressive and can get in positions to get a lot of gunfights. That's where he's going to excel at. Unfortunately, that isn't always the case, and in some instances, he is very easy to clear. So your mileage may vary with how skilled you are in either burning time or whatever you're doing. You're just going to have to be very cognizant of what you're doing as Vigil in order to get the most out of him. Next up is Legion. I'm going to be putting Legion in C tier. Even though I think Legion is good, I think he's definitely fallen from grace. I'm not going to, go over his nerfs that are 3 years old at this point, but they still feel fresh to me. But overall, he is decent. Not more I can say about that. He's an okay trap operator that is very, very good against shields, being the main deterror for shield operators, such as Montang, such as Osa recently, and also Blitz is a really good counter to them. And besides that, that's really all I have to say about Legion. Next up is Mira. She is S tier by virtue of her gadget and by her virtue of her kit. She is a 3 armor, meaning she is a tanky woman, and she could probably throw me around. Please throw me around. This is joking, but have you seen the Mira Elite? Have you? Okay. Enough said. But the two black, black mirrors. That's what they're called. Black mirrors. I think. I actually don't know. I don't know the name of the gadget off the top of my head. But what it is it's a one-way mirror window, if you will. You put it on reinforced walls, soft walls. You can see through it. The enemy can't. They can only see, hey, there's a gadget here, and they don't know if anyone's playing it. And for that reason, it's actually very strong because, hey, if you're playing it, there's a guy on there. You have it on a soft wall. You have it in an advantageous position. You can peek out like bola, boom, 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 and get some free kills, making her very, very good. And she also has probably arguably one of the best defender weapons in the game, being the Vector. In addition to this, she has a secondary shotgun to make rotates and open hatches, and she has a C4 to secure kills and or just deny plant. Overall, honestly a very strong operator and probably one of my favorite defenders in the game, but not my favorite. It was definitely top 5 for sure. Next up, we have Doc. Doc, with the recent changes, moves up to B. The reason why is because he's pretty pog, and here's why he's pog. I can heal from a distance, I can snipe you, and res you if you're down. I can give you more health, and overall, he's actually decent with the recent health changes. I mean, yeah, it was like I said before, but overall, big fan of it. Highly recommend playing Doc if you're not going to play T-Bird, but you should be playing T-Bird. You'll see why in a little bit. But definitely a good operator and a good alternative. If you want a good anchor operator, pretty good. If you want a good roaming operator, believe it or not, even though he doesn't seem like one, Doc can be an incredibly good roaming operator when played correctly. Next up is Rook. Rook will be also going into B tier with his armor giving health flatly now. Very good, and similar with Doc, he can be a very good roamer. And honestly, that's how I would prefer to play Rook and Doc. Even though they don't seem like roamers, their kits are inherently selfish, and they're inherently good for increasing their survival rate, meaning that, hey, if I'm roaming and I have a higher survival rate than, say, a 3-speed counterpart of mine, maybe I can engage in more gunfights and then therefore have more opportunity to get kills and influence the round and or slow down the round, which is still a net positive influence on the round as a defender. Next up is Jaeger. Jaeger is going to be in A tier, though I'm not putting him in S because his gadgets are really kind of useless in its current form. He's not fun to play, and his gun is mediocre. Even though, oh, his gun is not that bad, is, definitely a comment I'm going to get, but that's going to be majority from Golds. As someone who is a multiple-time diamond in this current season, I'm diamond on 4 accounts this season, and previously diamond many other seasons, his gun is not that good. It's not difficult to control. No, I would agree it is not difficult to control, but it is weird. It is not normal, and it is abnormal. If you play any of these operators here, and then play Jaeger with his gun, it's going to feel strange, and it's going to feel unnatural because of the way the recoil works. It's not difficult, it's just strange. And that strangeness can throw you off. In addition to this, his gadget isn't too good, and there's a reason because of this. Hey, listen, that's cool that I get 3 ADSs, but their charge time is like 10 seconds in between charges, and it's really easy to overwhelm them. Boom, just throw in a bunch of utility, and then bum rush it, and then it's over. If you can maximize your ability to mitigate his ADSs and capitalize on it as fast as you possibly can, it's really good. A lot of people, what I see, and this is a big issue that I don't know why attackers do it, they'll burn an ADS and they won't do anything and they'll let it recharge. If you burn that ADS and you're actionable on that burning of the ADS, it can be very, 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 very bad for defenders very fast. A great example of this is Elbow on Oregon. People like to play Elbow in basement. They usually set up a shield with a bunch of ADSs. All you have to do is throw, hey, we got an operator, 3 flashes, and then a nade. It is that simple, and you can time it as such where, hey, the nade is going to reach and explode before the ADSs recharge easily every time. Next up is Bandit. Bandit just rockets into S tier with the recent mute nerf. If you don't understand, the mute nerf changes the way his gadget propagates and therefore he cannot fully get all the walls now on certain sites, meaning that Bandit is objectively as good, if not better than Mute, even though Mute kind of gets relegated to an information denial role, which I can talk about in another video, and why the Mute nerf is just a buff to it's complicated. But Mute is not as good as denying walls as Bandit, and therefore Bandit rockets up to S tier with a good weapon kit, and it kind of gets a lot of prevalence again, and Bandit tricking is poggers again, which is pretty cool. Next up is Mute. Hey, Mute's S tier, but he's not S tier. He's not as good. He's S tier, but he's not great. Probably one of the weaker operators in S tier in terms of, raw power, but he is a master of all, I guess, jack of all trades, master of none type of deal now, where he was like, before he was really good at everything. He was just really good at what he did. He was actually probably pretty broken, with, immense area denial in terms of information gathering. So he was just a nuisance against drones. And then in addition to that, certain operator gadgets, you can just mute them, deny them, not great. So with the recent change, it makes it a little bit more forgiving for attackers. They can work around the mute area. And in addition to that, he's not as prevalent as a wall denial operator. He's still pretty good, though, with a shotgun to make rotates and an SMG-11 to back up his kit in terms of destructibility. And hey, or not destructibility, but in terms of firefighting. And then he also has a C4, which you can use to deny plant and secure kills. Overall, a very strong operator that I highly recommend playing. If you're not going to bring Mute, he is a good, or if you're not going to bring Bandit, he's a good alternative. Wow, that was just very, back-to-back, that was very complicated. Next up is Smoke. Smoke is an S tier operator used for area denial and rotations and soft destruction. Probably the best in the game at that, and probably the best defender handedly, or one of the best defenders. Definitely a top 2 anchor, if not a number 1 anchor, and probably, just one of the most clutch operators in the game. You see him used a lot in Pro League, and there's a reason for it. And I highly recommend you be using him in your game and playing him in a very conservative passive playstyle. You can do nothing but profit with this operator. Next up is Castle. Castle is just, dude, that guy is like, I don't even know. Like, he could be F tier if you're like my randoms that I get on my team. Like, he's definitely F tier. But if you're like a Pro League player, whew, they buffed him to the moon and back, and he'll be getting a B tier. Usually I place him relatively low on these tier lists, but he's getting a B tier this time around. The reason because he's getting a B tier is because they added a 4th panel, which is just ludicrous mode. And that's basically it. Having that one extra panel makes him very, very, very strong, and a kind of a force to be reckoned with on the defending front. All right, next up we have Pulse. Pulse is B tier. He's a decent roamer used to get information and is very good at doing that. Actioning on that information is a little bit different, considering he only has 1 C4 to, try to get a kill with it, which usually can, net probably like 0.7 kills a round with his C4 is a conservative estimate. Probably higher than probably 0.8. Why it's not 1 kill per round is because you can miss, and there's delay when you throw it, and they could be moving, and you just don't really know. There's a lot of parameters at stake. So it's not a guaranteed kill, but it is probably 70% of the time to 80% of the time, hence the 0.8 KPR stat that I'm just giving it arbitrarily, of course. Next up, he has not a great shotgun, so you're not going to be doing a lot of floor banging like you can with someone like Smoke or Mute, or even Doc and Rook with their shotguns, respectively. So overall, I'm going to give him, he's a B. He's okay. He can sometimes pull off some wizardry, and I'm actually, pretty confident if I have a Pulse on my team that he can get it done. If he's one of the last alive and a clutch, I've got some faith in him. He's a good clutch operator, and for that reason, he's B tier. Next up, we have Frost. So here's the issue with Frost, right? Frost, like, F tier, lol. But no, Frost is actually, like, incredibly good all the way up until A tier. And this is because just the nature of the game and how it's changing. She's really good. Frost operator is fundamentally strange in the fact that she gets value out of her gadget in a non-straightforward way. And usually, like, yes, you can walk into her gadget and it will guarantee a down. She has 3 of them, so there's 3 potential downs, which is, net. You get possibly 3 potential kills. And she also, does have a secondary shotgun for rotates and a bulletproof shield. But, like, that's not, like, the reason why she's strong. The whole reason why she's strong is that if you're entering through a window, which, like, in some cases, you're going to have to be entering through a window. It's just a thing that's going to happen. And if that's going to happen, you then have to decide psychologically, do I take the fight with the frostbite on the floor or the dude? And in some cases, you can put 2 frostbites on a window, and hey, like, that's better, right? Even though one's going to get shot, you're going to probably get the other one to have some success in some way or another. But if there's only one on a window, and you're playing that window, the attacker has to decide, do I take the one gunfight with the guy watching my window, or do I take the one gunfight with the floor? And it becomes this, like, very strange paradigm where you have to, like, figure out, like, what am I doing? And that psychologically can slow down attackers, and in addition, that also just, why she's so good in my opinion. It's the psychological aspect of having a Frost and the dual tandem mechanic of her watching a window and having a Frost mat there. But if we're going to talk about her kit, she has an okay SMG, she has a semi-okay shotgun, but really you're going to be running the SMG with the secondary shotgun and a shield, of course. And that's how I would run her, and that's how I would recommend everyone to run her, but yeah. Now, I gave her a lot of praise, but I don't think she's S tier. I think there are better operators, but I think she is a solid operator to bring in your lineup in a majority of maps and a vast majority of sites. Next up, we have Chaka. Chaka is going to get A tier. The Lord and Savior of RainbowSixSiege is really good, kind of, actually. And here's why. Previously, with this, change, which again is not too recent, he gets the Shamika launcher. The Shamika launcher is a incendiary grenade launcher, which is used to deny area, and it does quite a bit of damage. With proper setups and proper, team coordination and cooperation, it is very good, and you can set it up where it's basically there's no way feasibly to enter the site. My favorite example of this is I love playing this operator on throne. I can sit behind the throne. I just put my hands upon my head, and I click the fire launcher once every 10 seconds on each doorway, and I profit because it does a decent amount of damage. And who in their right mind wants to push that? In addition, he has an okay LMG. It shoots relatively slow. I think it's the slowest shooting weapon in the game. It's an automatic, and it does quite a bit of damage, and it's used for soft destruction. It can open hatches, and it can destroy walls indefinitely. But the issue is lackluster on ammo. It's just not a lot of fire rate. We're a game where fire rate is king. So I would recommend bringing his other SMG, which is decent, but it's not great. So take that how you want it. But overall, A tier, definitely a good operator for sure. Next up, we have Capcan. Capcan is A tier. I think he's a very good trap operator, and I think he's very comparable to Frost. Even with the recent changes that I can put a tactical nuke on a window or a door frame and send someone to spectating observation tools within 2 seconds. That's great. I like that. It's Amazon Prime sipping straight to cams. The issue is mileage may vary. If you bring a Capcan and you can seal him, or you can, pocket Capcan where you don't run a Capcan for the first 2 rounds and then you run a Capcan, you might get some decent variety out of that. So I think he is good, but I don't think he is great, but I think he's better than someone like Legion. But I don't know if he's as good as someone as Frost, but I think he's also comparable to Frost in some senses. It's weird. It's very strange, and you can't really define in a tier list, at least, like, a definitive placement when, like, it's inherently abstract, and it's also, like, comes down to, like, a lot of, like, just really small things that just, like, pile up, and it's, like, it's all situational. So overall, I'm going to say Capcan is A tier, but there's definitely cases where he is not A tier, and there's definitely cases where he's higher, and he's an operator that has a very high skill ceiling, if that makes sense. But it's complex. It's just very abstract to try to condense this down to, like, a linear tier list. But we put him in A tier with, like, some instances him being in B and then some being in S. Yeah, that's all I can say about Capcan. He's very strange. Next up, we have Recruit. Recruit is S tier. Next up, we have Melusi. Melusi is also S tier. This is because she is really good. With changes to her kit, fundamentally, yes, she does lose a C4, but she gains a piece of bulletproof utility, which we all know is very broken. And this bulletproof utility is the bulletproof camera, which is supposedly getting a change next season in year 6, season 4. High caliber, which this will make the bulletproof camera able to shoot EMPs type things, and just overall be more of a nuisance. So that change, she is definitely still S tier, and her 3 Banshees are still incredibly strong, and overall her kit is incredible. So definitely S tier. Nothing has changed on that front. Next up is a Rooney. A Rooney is another S tier operator. There's a lot of S tier operators because a lot of these operators are really, really, really good. The reason why Rooney is S tier is, well, she has a bionic arm. She can one-punch holes in walls, create rotates, and open hatches, making her an effectively really good roamer. She has a decent gun in the Rooney and the MK14. And in addition to this, her Surya gates are 3 laser gates that incur damage upon attackers and burn utility respectively, and can be reset once every 30 seconds, sometimes 45 seconds if you throw an EMP into it. Overall, a very strong defender gadget, and for that reason, it is entirely S tier. All right, next up, we have T-Bird. T-Bird is S tier. She's really broken. I don't know why she's in the game. She has 3 of these K-Kona stations that heal once every 30 seconds. They heal you for, I believe it's 20 to 30 health. I actually don't know the exact number. It could actually be more than that. But what we really need to focus on is the fact that she is a 3-speed. Wow, who would have thought? And she has a C4. And, oh, what's that? What's that? She has a spear. She has a spear 3-0. She has an assault rifle on attack, or defense rather, and it's incredibly strong. It hits like a freight train. So that reason she's S tier. Overall, her gadget and the way her utility is, and the way she is played as an operator is all very much indicative of an S tier operator. Now, I'm going to see if I'm missing any operators. I do know that I'm missing one because this tier list just doesn't come with it, but I want to make sure I'm not missing anyone else. It does not look like I am. So the one operator we're missing is going to be Ella. I'll be using Zofia in place of Ella. I think Ella, or well, I guess Zofia in this case, is A tier. She's good. She's really good. She's not great though. And here's, I'm going to put her in B tier actually. Ella is really good in some instances, but not all instances. The instances that Ella absolutely, undoubtedly thrives in my opinion, are going to be when she's holding a staircase or when she's playing with her shotgun. So a confined area, usually one entryway that she has to hold. She is the gatekeeper of hell in that point, right? Whereas outside of that, roaming, she's okay, not great, and overall just mediocre and everything else. But like denying one area that is a single point of entry with her shotgun is her specialty, and for that reason, I think she's B tier. With her, like if she's playing in that special role, S tier. But outside of that, overall B tier, and I'm gonna be basing this kind of overall. But I'm gonna be putting it in B tier, unfortunately. Here is my operator tier list for the Operation Crystal Guard. If you guys liked it, let me know. I'll upload another one next season, which will be relatively soon. And I'll be grinding on uploads, so I appreciate if you guys would subscribe. And it'd mean the world. Thank you guys. See ya.